don't get the quote watercolor paper that doesn't say it's 100% rag content. So you want 100% cotton rag, 100% rag content watercolor paper. And a lot of the pads in the art supply stores and the big retail box stores, they have real watercolor paper too, but they also have rows and rows of these pads that aren't really watercolor paper. Now they're fine for you to use as scratch sheets and practice sheets and swatches, for trying out palettes. You'll get an inferiority complex about your watercolor painting if you try to do a nice painting on that kind of paper. That's wood pulp paper. So we want to paint on the cotton because it gives you a much better experience painting. It's more fun, and the result is always more professional looking. There's 22 by 30 inch is the size for an individual sheet, but you can get this in pads of various sizes. You can also get it in a block. And what I'm going to recommend you do is you fold and tear this into quarter sheets. And that way you'll have 4 sheets from one 22 by 30 inch sheet, or you might have a pad that already has similar size restraints like that. I recommend you start off with cold press paper. So it's got that texture. It's a little more fun to paint on. It's bumpier. It's got more tooth. And that way on cold press, you can get a quicker experience of what it is like to really be painting in a water-based medium. And you'll get a sense of how it's supposed to work. It's easier to do with a cold press paper. And when you get practice with cold press paper, you might want to switch over and also try working on hot press paper, which is a very smooth texture to it, and the paint acts a little differently on the surface of it. So it's a little trickier. It's illustrators love it because it's a whole lot easier to trace your sketch onto the watercolor paper over a light box, and hot press is used a lot in illustration. But I would like you to get your chops up with using cold press first to get the true feeling of using watercolor and painting the correct way that we're going to show you, and then move over to hot press paper and see which one you like. 90 pound, a lot of illustrators have used it. It's real thin. 140 pound is a little more substantial. It's still pliable enough for art director to put over a drum where the image is laser scanned on a drum. The 300 pound is too thick and will crimp and bend. So the 140 pound is more pliable. Yes, manufacturer, the best manufacturer. That my favorite is. Can you guess, Kathy? Can you guess what my favorite watercolor paper is?
That looked a lot like Arches.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And then I had a French student in class a few months ago who told us all the correct way to. Nobody in the United States pronounced it the correct way. Do you know
Yeah.
what the fancy way is?
Is it like Arche?
It's close. It's Arche.
Arche. That sounds like somebody made a mistake.
It does. It's real hard to say. It does not come off the tongue trippingly at all. But maybe we should just call it Arches here. It's the Yankee way of saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. Arche rocks, Christine says. Yeah, it's really fine. It was bought not too long ago by Canson, which makes a lot of pastel papers, and I think Canson has some pads that they call watercolor paper, but it's not really watercolor paper. It's wood pulp wood pulp paper. So don't get that. If it's it's Arche. It's Arche by Canson now. Originally Arche was, well, I guess they still make it in France, in the town of Arche, province of Arche, town of Arche. And they've been making it over there since 1492. And I guess
Wow.
Canson just bought, the year Columbus discovered America. I didn't know there were that many Sunday hobby painters doing watercolors back in 1492. Anyway, so a brush. You can start off with one brush. Don't get a little brush. Get the biggest brush you think you can get away with. This is a size 12 round, and I think it's mostly synthetic. Maybe there's a little sable hair in it. I'd like to think so, but it wasn't a very expensive brush. It's Princeton Velvetouch. Well, it sounds official, doesn't it? It's called a long round. Number two, the round brushes. This is the round brush, the classic brush shape. Um, they range in sizes from 0, 0, 0 all the way up to 16, 24. I guess is 24 the largest one I can think of. This is a good size right here, 12. And if you're brave and want to paint boldly, you get a bigger size, get a 14. And then what else have I got here? This is my painting bucket. I got this at Home Depot. It's all you need. I think it's like a couple bucks. It's for real. It's in the paint department where real house paint is being mixed, I suspect. And a student in class had one of these and as soon as I saw her bucket, I wanted, and I've got a whole bunch of them. And now I get them for the students in class. Not you guys. I mean, talking about the on the ground students. I can't get everybody their art supplies, but 2.5 quarts. You want a big thing for water. Okay, the other thing, this is another high-tech art supplies. This is a kitchen sponge that I've cut down to about 1/8 of the sponge. Nothing fancy. It's not one of those squeezable detergent sponges. Don't get anything with detergent in it. That'll kind of work against your efforts, right? So this is, and don't get, I'm not talking about an art supply store kind of fancy sea sponge sort of thing that you could use for texture and stuff. This has a whole different purpose. This is just a functional utilitarian kitchen sponge. No Brillo pad on the back of it or anything. And you can just cut it into small. You don't need a big piece, obviously. Okay, and then is that it? Oh, paint rag. Had to go to a fancy art supply store to get this. No, not really. This is last season's blue jeans I cut up when they were too holey to wear. So this is nice because it too is cotton. It's strong enough to help you open, stuck paint tube caps, get them off, and it's also soft enough to not tear up your brushes because you're going to be wiping your brushes clean with them. And then lastly, if you got some sort of a little pocket knife, just something to make scrapes on your paper. Maybe an X-Acto knife would work just as well, but this is kind of nice. It has a nice size blade, and you can use this to cut into stuff you've already painted. Kathy, what am I missing? Are you a water media person?
I have done some watercolors. What about the paint?
Well, the paint. I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's start for the practice sessions we'll be doing right off the bat. Why don't you start with some some tubes of primary colors. I do have a paint supply list, my color list in the course, and we'll start to use more of those paints. And what I say, basically what I say there is get a warm and a cool version of each of the primaries. But for the first few painting exercises we'll be doing, the drills, you can just get 3 colors, a blue, a red, and a yellow, and then we'll see whether or not you've got a warm yellow or cool yellow, and then we'll go from there. Good question. I like lots of different paint. They're all pretty good. I like Da Vinci, and because it's juicy, professional grade paint. Carol says she loves Canson watercolor books with 140-pound rag paper. Yeah, check on the cover, on those the pad covers to make sure it is rag, 100% rag. A lot of you are already painting on cold press. Yeah, Carol says her first watercolor teacher had her painting on 400-pound watercolor paper, and I've taken classes like that too, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to paint with heavy paper. It's really kind of freeing. So try some of that too. But don't sell the farm to get your art supplies. We can build it a little bit at a time. Okay. Any other questions about supplies? I plan to do some little videos that I will be getting to you guys where we'll start doing a few drills and stuff to get us comfortable. My promise to you in the course is that you will be, if you do all the drills and and have fun with it and relax with it, take a little time with it, you will be really, really comfortable with a traditional based media painting. So that's my my goal, and I think we'll get there if you just bear with me. Several of you are already painting just fine in watercolor, so that's great. It will only nurture and influence and help your digital painting that we're all bound to be doing before it's all over. Not in this course, but in your career as an illustrator. It's going there. It's going there, but you can really tell the digital art painters or would-be digital painters who had not had any experience with traditional painting. You can tell, and it's painting in the real materials is a great foundation for the digital um, for digital illustration, and it will really inform you and give you that base that you need, in my opinion. Anybody have any? How do I store my paper? I just keep when I order the watercolor paper online occasionally from one of the online people, it comes in this giant box, 22 by 30 inch. It's carrying 22 by 30 inch sheets, and I just keep my paper. And then as I buy more and more paper, I keep putting it in that box that was shipped to me 6 months ago. And so the box is a nice way of standing upright. Pieces all fit in there, and I just take it out of the box. It's right over there. I could pull it out, but Christine loves painting with koi watercolors. Does anyone use koi? Great. Okay, good. Well, you guys were patient with that.